For 40 years, Iran made one promise to the world. Touch our navy, and we close Hormuz. Every tanker stops. Every barrel of oil that feeds Europe, Asia, and America, gone. The math was simple. Iran didn't need to win a war. It only needed to sink one ship in a 6-mile corridor, and the global economy would do the rest. Analysts believed them. The Pentagon wargamed it for decades. Insurance markets priced it into every policy written for Gulf shipping. For 40 years, that threat kept every American president from pulling the trigger. Supreme Leader Khamenei said it himself in speech after speech. America fears the consequences more than we do. The Strait is our weapon, and no one takes a weapon from us. On February 28, 2026, the United States called the bluff. What happened in the next 7 days didn't just change the balance of power in the Persian Gulf, it rewrote the equation Iran had spent 4 decades perfecting. This is that equation, and this is how it was solved. If you've never watched one of our videos before, this is what we do. We take the military equations the headlines get wrong and we solve them, number by number. Subscribe before this video ends. The next breakdown is already being built. To understand what just happened, you have to go back to 1984. That year, during the Iran-Iraq War, Iran watched Iraqi aircraft sink tanker after tanker in the Persian Gulf. Iran retaliated. It started laying mines. It sent speedboats to harass neutral shipping. Over 8 years, 411 ships were hit in what became known as the Tanker War. 55 of them were lost. Several hundred merchant mariners were killed. And Iran learned something that would define its military doctrine for the next 4 decades. You don't need a navy that can win. You need a navy that can deny. The U.S. eventually intervened. In April 1988, an Iranian mine damaged USS Samuel B. Roberts. The U.S. responded with Operation Praying Mantis, a single day of strikes that sank or crippled much of Iran's navy. Iran backed down. The Strait stayed open. Iran filed that lesson away. Not, don't threaten the Strait. The lesson was, don't let your navy be caught in port when the Americans decide to shoot back. So over the next 38 years, Iran rebuilt, not into a blue water fleet designed to fight the U.S. Navy head-on. That was a war Iran could not win. Instead, Iran built a machine with one purpose: to make the cost of fighting too high for anyone to pull the trigger. Iran operates 2 separate navies: the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy, the conventional force with frigates, submarines, destroyers, and the IRGC Navy, the irregular force built entirely around asymmetric denial. Iran's crown jewel was the Iris Makran, a converted supertanker, 755 feet long, redesigned as a floating forward operating base. It carried a helicopter pad, drone launch capability, and special operations support infrastructure. It made port calls in Venezuela and Russia, a deliberate signal: our Navy is not just a coastal force anymore. And then there were the mines. 16 dedicated mine-laying vessels, positioned to seed a 6-mile corridor with enough ordnance to stop the world's oil supply. You don't need to sink a convoy to close a strait. You need one burning hull in the channel, and no insurer on Earth writes the next policy. Iran spent 40 years solving that equation perfectly. At 1:15 a.m. on February 28th, the first Tomahawks left their tubes. Not one destroyer, several, simultaneously, from the Arabian Sea, from the Red Sea, from positions Iran did not fully know about, B-2 stealth bombers already airborne from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, F-35s suppressing air defense networks that had already been degraded in the 12-day war 8 months earlier. And a targeting list that started not with missiles, not with air defenses, not with command infrastructure. It started with ships. The prioritization was deliberate. The Pentagon had understood something Iran's commanders had underestimated. The threat of Hormuz only works if the tools to execute it survive the opening salvo. Destroy the mine layers before they can deploy. Destroy the drone carriers before they can launch. Destroy the frigates before they can coordinate. Break the kill chain at its source. In the first 24 hours, U.S. forces struck more than 1,000 targets across Iran, not sequentially, simultaneously. At Kanarak Naval Base, satellite imagery captured within hours showed 3 frigates sinking at their piers: the Jamaran, the Bayandor, the Nagdi. The IRGC had not dispersed them. They were still tied to the dock when the Tomahawks arrived. The Iris Makran, the ship that had made port calls in Caracas and docked in Russian harbors, struck and destroyed at Bandar Abbas before a single line could be cast off. The Iris Shahid Bagheri, the drone carrier, hit on the flight deck and quarterdeck within the opening hours. It never launched a single drone in defense of the country it was built to protect. The 16 mine-laying vessels hunted systematically. By March 10th, all 16 near Hormuz confirmed destroyed, 10 more in port, and then CENTCOM posted 4 words that would have seemed impossible 48 hours earlier. Iran has 0 warships remaining in the Gulf of Oman. 2 days before, they had 11. We break down every layer of these operations, the weapons, the doctrine, the decisions that don't make the headlines. If this is how you want to understand warfare, subscribe, hit the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. But the number that rewrote history didn't happen at Hormuz. It happened 1,500 miles away in the Indian Ocean, south of Sri Lanka. The Iris Dina was Iran's most capable surface combatant, a Moj-class frigate commissioned in 2021, equipped with anti-ship missiles, radar systems, and a helicopter pad. Modern, capable, built to operate beyond Iranian waters. In the weeks before February 28th, the Dina had been participating in Milan 2026, a multinational naval exercise hosted by India. 86 ships, 74 nations, a deliberate show of force, Iran's navy operating alongside the world's great powers. It was transiting home through the Indian Ocean when the war began. A U.S. nuclear-powered submarine had been tracking it. 2 Mark 48 torpedoes, 1 connected. The Dina sank in the Indian Ocean, 19 nautical miles off the coast of Sri Lanka. The first major warship sunk in combat by an American submarine since World War II. 81 years, 1 torpedo. General Dan Kane said it plainly at the Pentagon briefing: to hunt, find, and kill an out-of-area deployer is something that only the United States can do at this type of scale. Secretary Hegseth added 3 words that the Iranian Navy would not forget: quiet death. The message was not tactical, it was strategic. There is no safe water. By day 5, Secretary Hegseth stood at a podium at MacDill Air Force Base and said 3 words that no Iranian military planner had a doctrine to answer: combat ineffective. Run the numbers. More than 60 vessels destroyed or disabled across both Iranian naval forces. All 4 ships of the Shahed Soleimani class, Iran's most advanced surface combatants commissioned within the last 2 years, gone. The Kilo-class submarine at Bandar Abbas, the most operationally capable submarine in Iran's fleet, struck and sunk at its pier. By March 16th, CENTCOM Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed more than 100 Iranian naval vessels destroyed or disabled. A combined fleet that before February 28th had numbered between 250 and 300 vessels, reduced to a fraction, disorganized, unable to coordinate. Ballistic missile attacks down 90% from day 1. Drone attacks down 83%. Iran had built a navy to close a strait. In under a week, the U.S. dismantled the navy without sending a single warship into the strait to fight. Now look at it from Tehran's side. For 40 years, the threat worked because the tools were intact. Mines in storage, fast boats in coves, drone carriers at sea. The threat derived its power entirely from the existence of the tools. Remove the tools, and the threat is a speech. The U.S. didn't try to sweep mines under Iranian fire, didn't send carriers into the Persian Gulf bathtub. Didn't fight the war Iran had prepared for. It destroyed the factories that produced the mines, sank the ships before they could lay them, struck the naval bases before a single vessel could disperse, and did all of it in the opening hours before Iran could execute a single coordinated response. Iran's doctrine had 3 potential responses: disperse the fleet, deploy mines immediately, activate the drone carriers. Each response required time Iran didn't have. 3 responses, 3 failures. Not because the responses were wrong, but because the window to execute them had already closed before Tehran understood the war had started. Here is what this does not mean. Hormuz is not open. Mines already seeded before February 28th take weeks to clear. Iran still controls 3 fortified islands directly inside the shipping corridor: Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb. Seized in 1971, still garrisoned, still capable of threatening individual vessels. The threat has changed in character, not from a coordinated navy capable of systematic closure, that capability is gone, but from a coastline and 3 islands that can still threaten individual ships. That is a smaller problem, but it is not zero, which is why the USS Tripoli, an amphibious assault ship with 20 F-35Bs and 2,500 Marines, is running at high speed toward Hormuz right now. Because the carrier solved 90%, and 90% is not 100. In 1988, Operation Praying Mantis sank Iranian ships in a single day. Iran rebuilt over 38 years and concluded the lesson was, don't get caught in port again. They dispersed doctrine, they built redundancy, they developed asymmetric tools. For 38 years, they solved the right problem. But here is the variable Iran never fixed. The threat only works if the tools survive. Iran didn't build a navy to fight the United States. It built a navy to threaten a decision, to make the cost calculation so unfavorable that no American president would ever authorize the order. The threat worked. For 40 years, it worked. Until the day it didn't. Iran spent 4 decades building the perfect weapon to close the world's most important strait. The weapon was real. The math was correct. The deterrent was genuine. But deterrence has one condition no military doctrine can substitute for. The tools have to be there when the moment comes. Iran solved the right equation, they just forgot to protect the variables. Drop your answer in the comments. Do you think Iran rebuilds? Or did Operation Epic Fury end the threat permanently? If you want the full breakdown of how USS Tripoli is solving the last 10%, the mines, the islands, and the Marines arriving by helicopter onto positions Iran never built defenses against, that video is right here. Subscribe. New video every week.